The integration of sustainable land management into the secondary school's curriculum is one of the deliverables of the Sustainable Land Management Project. I'm pleased to say that GLNSE, that's the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, is fully supportive of this type of initiative.
The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, is an intergovernmental organization working for poverty alleviation and sustainable development. Within our work, sustainable land management is one of the important areas of work in environment because land degradation has both poverty and environment dimensions. To this end, the UNDP in Guyana office, with funding from the Global Environmental Facility, GEF, has been working with the government of Guyana, especially with the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission and the Ministry of Education to develop curriculum for school teachers in the secondary education to teach secondary school children about the importance of sustainable land management. I am pleased to have this opportunity to develop this curriculum with our partners in Guyana.
We had first the stakeholder consultation, which was held on Monday, 30th of January 2012. The stakeholder consultation, during that process, we had a lot of recommendations from stakeholders from the Ministry of Education and other agencies. The second day we had training of teachers on the 31st of January, and those teachers were from the Georgetown area. On the 1st of February, we had training of teachers from the administrative regions and the outskirts of Georgetown area.
We were engaged in September 2011 by the Guyana Land and Surveys Commission to produce this Teacher's Resource Guide on sustainable land management. We began working with Andrea by reviewing some of the curriculum and various policies throughout the country, and then developing a table of contents that modeled after some of other materials produced by the UN. We took our table of contents for the kit to various stakeholders, and there was a discussion and some feedback to us, and as a result of that input we came up with a final table of contents. The kit itself is organized into three components. The first component really provides fundamentals of sustainability and sustainable land management. So it deals with various concepts such as ecosystem services, ecological footprint, biocapacity, as a foundation to the rest of the kit. The basic premise is that sustainability, or to live sustainability, we cannot draw down on our natural capital. The Earth's ecosystem services are fundamental to human well-being on the planet. And the notion behind sustainability is that we are making sure that we're managing environmental resources in a sustainable way so that they are there for future generations. And sustainable land management is one aspect of an overall sustainability approach.
The workshop on sustainable land management is perhaps the icing on the cake that we've been looking for in getting our teachers to deliver material over a wide range of issues. Biodiversity loss comes with the loss of land and land degradation. That's not the only factor, but this is perhaps the factor that we're focusing on as we do sustainable land management. What has been happening in our schools is that we have teachers who are making lots of effort to deliver the curriculum. And in the efforts that they're making, they would have had to research the content. So the fact that this workshop is one that would not have only prepare the kits for the teachers, but give them the training in the use of these kits in delivering lessons in the classroom makes a world of difference to the school system. It means that teachers now having the material, they will be a lot more comfortable in delivering the lessons. I've actually looked at a document and they actually spell out the methodology for the lessons. So it's not only that you have content, you have examples, you have the style in which you can do this. And when I read some of them, I know You will never find this information on the internet. This is information talking about Guyana in terms of individual settlements, individual land masses, different communities, bordering communities, and how the integration of these communities function to the benefit of the Guyanese population and the world as a whole.
First component, fundamentals, building blocks, if you like, for understanding the next two components. So component 2 really deals with the factors and issues that are affecting land degradation here in Guyana. And we've organized this along functional lines so that we're looking at industries, for example. How does mining impact land? How does agricultural impact land? How are we designing urban centers to minimize our impacts on land, or what are the issues associated with urban development and land management? That's unit 2. And of course, in terms of developing these units, we look very closely at those 4 curriculi, geography, integrated science, biology, as well as agriculture, and try to pull out key concepts and reinforce key concepts in the curriculum, because at the end of the day, we want this particular resource guide to be useful to teachers throughout the country. So we need to make sure that we're inserting concepts that they can then use to reinforce key learnings for CXC. So that's component 2. At the end of the day, we want to inspire action, positive action. So component 3 focuses on solutions. What are the sustainable land management practices, again, in each of those areas? So in mining, so in the mining component, for example, or unit, we look at how at each stage of the mine life cycle can you integrate good practice around land management, whether you're in exploration phase, operational phase, or closure phase. So we walk through solutions for each of those industrial areas: forestry, agriculture, urban planning. And really, lastly, we wanted to focus on different voices, making sure that we were recognizing what scientists had to say about sustainable land management practices, as well as what Amerindian knowledge and tradition has to contribute in terms of good practice. So the final chapters really look at governance. How do we govern properly for sustainable land management, and how do we incorporate various diverse practices as a part of the overall solution. So the structure of the kit is three parts and 17 units. Section 1, units 1 through 4, is all about what I call fundamentals. So some fundamental concepts that we would like students to know about as a basis for SLM. And part 2 is really looking at some of the key issues and factors that are underlying the land degradation. And so it really focuses on what's happening to our land and what are the reasons behind some of the problems. And then the last one, which is, I think, the most important section, is the section that focuses on solutions. So what can we do vis-a-vis some of these issues? Sustainable land management is the adoption of land use systems that, through appropriate management practices, enable land users to maximize economic and social benefits from the land while maintaining or enhancing the ecological support functions of the land resources. And we're going to spend some time in the first section to really unpack that and understand what are the fundamentals that underlie that definition. Okay, go ahead. So as I said, 3 parts, and these next 3 slides just tell you a little bit more about what's in each part. So fundamentals includes the concepts listed here, and I'll go into those in a minute. Unit 2 looks at, part 2 looks at how land degradation is impacting economic, environmental, and social aspects of development. And part 3 is really looking at the solutions. So I think that's it for this. Part 1 is fundamentals. And some of the concepts I want to go through with you today, and you can go through your students in the classroom, are the sustainability imperative, ecosystem services, carbon sequestration, ecological footprint and biocapacity, land degradation, and SLM. Why does sustainability matter? So there's 4 imperatives. There's an economic imperative on a global scale. In terms of energy, we know that fuel costs are rising. We know that the cost of a barrel of oil is going up. We know that there's something called peak oil, where there's not going to be fossil fuel available anymore. So the world is quickly trying to find other clean energy sources, whether it's biomass, solar energy, wind energy, or nuclear energy. And none of these solutions are necessarily easy or apparent. In fact, for every kind of energy you create, you also need to invest energy. So there's this notion of return on energy invested in terms of finding the best solutions for energy. So that's another imperative. Environment, we know that we've got a growing demographic. I think it's 7 billion we've reached this year in terms of the human population on Earth. We know that resources are limited. They don't, there's a notion of resource scarcity out there, which means that we need more and more food for a growing population. We need more and more mining and metals for, industrialization, that sort of thing. So there's something that people are aware of, which is called resource scarcity, and we need more land to grow food. Equity. We know that there's a big divide between rich and poor, and that divide happens within countries and between North and South, and that the issue of poverty has been with us for a long time, and it's not going away. And that divide is increasingly growing. So these are the 4 imperatives around sustainability as drivers. Just some stats. We're at 7 billion in terms of our population. Our energy use has increased 16-fold since the beginning of the 20th century. Our industrial production has grown 40-fold. Water use has increased 9 times. Fish catches has increased by a factor of 35. So we're depleting our resources in the oceans as well as on the land. Carbon dioxide, the cause of climate change, has increased by a factor of 17 since the early 20th century. Sulfur emissions 13-fold, other kinds of air pollution by a factor of 5, and then tropical deforestation and desertification has accelerated for the most part. And what does it mean to you? I'll give you 1 minute, and I'm going to ask you just to write down on your pieces of paper a thought that you might have around sustainability and what it means to you.
Sustainability means the wise and careful use of resources, ensuring that the little that is being used is used to its maximum, and resources are left for the future generations to see, use, and enjoy.
Sustainability is the conservation or use of resources in a way that allows for the benefit and availability of these resources for future generations.
Sustainability is the ability or means to keep life on the earth for an infinite amount of time through responsible use of resources.
There was a focus on the environmental side. There was also a focus on the people side, and this notion of, future generations and making sure that there's intergenerational equity, if you like, so that we're not depleting our natural capital at a rate that then leaves future generations without the fundamental resources they need to have a decent life on Earth. So how do we create an economy that is based on principles that are aligned with some of the concepts you guys have been talking about around conservation of natural resources or even enhancing natural resources. So there's something that's emerging out there which is called the new economy, and we can see this in the energy sector, where we're actually getting off fossil fuels and looking for clean energy. And behind all that is a booming business for a number of kinds of providers of that new kind of energy. So this will be the economy of the future. The limiting factor to economic development, that limiting factor being natural capital. And why is that? Because our natural capital provides life-supporting systems on our planet Earth. And so what you will find in the kit as a core principle, and I believe it's in Unit 3, is this notion of ecosystem services. What program is your national government implementing? LCDS. Can you tell me what that is? I'm sorry. Okay. And what specifically low carbon strategy is based on ecosystem services? So it's this notion of your tropical rainforest as a regulating service for the global carbon cycle. Tropical forests or any forest